do you think that there's a pragmatic world that can emerge where we look at like small wins, like, retiring coal and replacing with natural gas or doing more nuclear or just things that can actually, that we have the tech today, we can get them done. But it's not going to be net zero, but it's going to be like better. Or do you think that that's going to be shunned and just these investors want to just go all the
Well,
way?
I think
I don't
there are
know.
a couple
What's your
important
thoughts?
points that come out of what you just mentioned. I think the first is I think there is a lot of good news. That the 8.5 degrees, some of the real high end scenarios, uh, those seem like they're off the table. I mean, I think even the Biden administration came out and removed the highest end from their official sort of talking points on this. And it looks like we're now debating somewhere between 2 and 3 degrees. There's probably still stuff that you'd have to say continues to happen to not 2 to 3 degrees. But I also accept the idea that these numbers are not that precise either, right? So it's not like, well, if I have one extra
Right.
ton, now I'm at 3.1. Like I think there's a false precision often assumed, and some of your guests will do a better job that you've had before of articulating that point. The other issue, though, is we're not only trying to count CO2. And I think it's the mistake that those that are hard on the climate make.
Mm,
What absolutely matters is the 1 to 3 billion people that either have nothing or used about the same amount of energy as an American's refrigerator. Those 3 billion absolutely deserve to have not be in energy poverty. And that's always going to win, right? We can't look. Germany decided, they're going to be net zero. They're going to have all these aggressive plans. They were out of Russian gas for 5 minutes. And what are they doing? They're raising towns for lignite coal. What? I mean, it's one thing to start up an existing coal plant. It's another thing to raise a freaking town, Max, in Germany, right?
yeah.
The most moralistic on these kind of topics country in the world, right? They were dependent on Russian gas. Maybe someone warned them about that. Maybe they didn't, but let's just forgive them that, right? They
Yeah.
retire their nukes, decide to bring back on coal, but somehow in 10 years, they're going to again be like, come on, right? Clearly, people are going to use energy first, and they deserve to. Gross zero energy poverty has to be our number one objective. And Max, I say this as an analyst. This is not my opinion. My observation as an analyst is people are always going to pick having energy. I mean, it's absurd to think otherwise. And I think if we were serious about climate, you had a great interview with it's not Miss Nuclear America. I believe it's Miss America, who's a nuclear scientist of some sort,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you've had other nuclear guests on as well. And those are just two people. There are many more. France, I give France credit. They're what, 75, 80% nuclear. And I think they export some of that to the UK and so forth. We couldn't be 100% nuclear. You do need to have some ability to flex the system. But if we were really serious about climate, we would have a nuclear Marshall Plan. And yes, these things take time. Yes, there's been some expense and policy and so forth. But again, if it was a urgent climate crisis, as people like to say, then we should be urgently building out our nuclear fleet. And I do take some comfort that the wheels are starting to change on that. But you got to provide people energy. The goal should be max energy availability with as low as a carbon footprint as possible if we're trying to solve for both of these things. But low carbon does not mean low hydrocarbon. And I think there is an ideology out there that I really find upsetting and push back on that are trying to eliminate fossil fuels, which is very different than simply trying to decarbonize and lower the carbon intensity, which is possible. We could clean up methane. There's a lot of things we can do in the oil and gas business to improve our carbon content. But make no mistake, people are going to want this stuff, as I think you and I certainly both appreciate.